everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the year. I'm here today with Dennis.
Hey Ben, thanks for having me.
Thank you
Nice
for
to be
coming.
here.
It's a pleasure. So Dennis, where are you from?
I am from Peru.
And what are you doing here in Canada?
Ooh, that's a long story. Where should I start? Do you have easier questions like that?
How long ago did you leave Peru?
How long? Okay, last time I was living in Peru was still 2014,
Mm-hmm.
and then I left to live in France.
Okay.
And after France, I arrived here.
And what brought you to France?
Love. I got married. She's French. At some point, we were living in Peru, but it was very difficult for her to adapt. Um, she was not much of a traveler. She did like travel
Mm-hmm.
back then. She still likes travel, but I had a lot more experience, so it was easier for me to adapt to her country at some point than for her to adapt to mine.
Mm-hmm.
That's why at some point we decided to switch to her hometown, to her country. And afterwards, at some point, we wanted to find a point of equilibrium for both of us, culturally, geographically, and for many other reasons like that. We chose Canada.
When you say culturally, can you explain how you can see some resemblance of Peruvian culture here in Montreal?
Well, the thing is that when you think of Peru, you're probably thinking of the Incan guy with the poncho and chullo and the llama across the city. Yeah, that's a common place where people think about Peru. But Peru is not really like that. Peru is a cosmopolitan city, country where you have important cities with a lot of people from different countries from around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the dominant culture is the influence from the US, which is a lot bigger in Peru as much as in Canada than in France. So, for example, something very easy to compare would be how easy it is to find movies um, in English from the United States, from Hollywood, um, subtitulated to the local language.
Mm-hmm.
So you can still hear the local versions, something you don't find, for example, in France. The same way, for example, something that my wife found in Peru that didn't find in France, and we also find it in Canada, are food courts. When we want
Mm-hmm.
to go out for a fast food and we cannot decide what to take, we just pick something from whatever we want each, and we eat all together on the same table.
You don't have them in France.
At least not at the place where we were living.
Okay.
So she thought it was a very nice idea. She was always complaining, "Why do we have these things here?" Maybe they're now, I don't know, but not when we arrived, not when she left France to live in Peru. So yes, many things like that. I am from Lima, which is also a very Occidental culture city in
Mm-hmm.
Peru. I was not lucky as to grow in a family who speaks Quechua, the typical language. We all spoke Spanish, and my
Mm-hmm.
second language was English. So Canada feels a lot closer to that than France. You see.
It's a really interesting perspective.
Yeah, but at the same time, we have here also French culture. You see,
Mm-hmm.
that's the good match, and geographically also because we're almost at the same distance from one to another country.
Yeah.
Almost, yeah.
How long's the flight to France?
From here, it takes 7 to 8 hours.
Okay.
I think maybe 10 from here to Peru.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah,
Not too bad.
haven't done that flight though. Not yet. Not from here.
Because you've been here 2 years now.
Yeah, soon to be 2 years.
Soon to be 2 years. When was the last time you were in Peru?
It was in 2017, I
Oh,
think.
okay. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a bit while.
You have a trip planned sometime soon?
Not yet. You know, it's difficult to to get all the paperwork done to stay here in Canada. So
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, in order to stay, you have to stay. The moment you take a plane and you leave the country, there are days that are not being counted. At the end, when you want to ask for, let's say, RP or citizenship, you they count how many days
Hmm.
you have been on the territory. So at the moment, we just want to rush into doing that. This is
Hmm.
our goal nowadays. We want to, um, well, we want peace, administrational peace, and that's the reason why we decided not to travel too much at this moment. Um, Doing our papers that also is a good opportunity to save money for when we have all the things done. We will be able to travel as much as we
Hmm.
want.
And how do you find the life here in Montreal after everything?
Well, it is quite nice. It's warm despite this snow.
Are you sure?
Yeah. What I mean is, people. The contact with people is warm. When I was in France, the very 2 or 3 first years I arrived, I was like, it felt very lonely. I felt I was like the only Peruvian, even Latin American person living
Hmm.
in the region. I I didn't find much people that were in my shoes. It's of course more difficult, not impossible, to match with those other people, the locals. But it was maybe not so easy the other way around.
Hmm.
So trying to make friends was not always very fruitful. I tried. You know the way I am. I don't have any trouble making friends. But when they don't answer back after a while, you wonder if they're really your friends or
Hmm.
they were just polite. And this didn't happen here. This was a lot easier here because a lot of people, of course, they understand here in Canada having a big network is very important.
Yeah.
And also, sometimes they are also in the same situations. It happened to me at first. Someone I met was because I approached one of it was a networking event, and there was this group of lawyers that could help you get through your situation into becoming a citizen of Canada,
Yeah.
all the procedure all along. They were asking about the personal situation. Well, at first they were asking me, but then they were asking them, and we were always saying anyway, me too, me too. Whatever they were saying, yeah, me too. How about you? Yeah, me too. So yes, and it's incredible how many people you find around that are pretty much in the same situation. So um, there's a lot of people from all around the world trying to connect to other people genuinely because they need to. You might think is interested, but once they achieve their goals, if this friendship stays, it's will tell you, yes, this is a good friendship. Sometimes you can feel it from before they achieve their goals.
Hmm.
You can feel that they really care about you. Now you met each other, you go out for a drink, you share a special moment. There's a connection with other people, and that is priceless. That's something I love so much from you.
Yeah, I think it's something that is really important when you're living far away from where you were born, to be able to find that and have those connections. 100% is it's what you need in your life. You can't live life without those connections and those people.
Yeah, exactly. Home is where your heart is.
Hmm. So I understand a bit more what you mean now, because you're, relatively speaking, with your experience in France, it was obvious your time settling in here has been a lot more easy, you would say.
Yeah, but before leaving France, as I was saying, the 2, 3 first year were rough, but afterwards I found also a community of people from Latin
Hmm.
America. It was a lot easier to contact with them because they were also more or less in the same situation. they having sometimes difficult, sometimes just struggling to make connections with other people, authentic connections.
Hmm.
But also because of our idiosyncrasy, because we are different in our way of connecting to people, maybe. So I have a very nice group of people, but still felt like kind of limited.
Hmm.
The name of the association was Aflacoba, for Association of Friend Collecting something something. But the nice thing is that I made very good friends there,
Hmm.
friends that I still in touch with. And yes, sometimes the only the fact that someone was joining the association was pretty much meaning they were becoming friends.
Hmm.
You see, that was at that point. Um,
So, do you think that this experience was very region based? Do you think it was because you were living in a very kind of niche area of France that you had this kind of more remote experience? There weren't many people from your
maybe
culture.
I don't know. At least that's what I was being told, because when I speak about it, people coming from bigger cities like from Paris or Lyon, even Bordeaux, they say I didn't have that problem. Uh, some sometimes people say you're just integrated with other people. But of course, it depends on the way of person you are. You tend to
Hmm.
match people that are more like you. If you are someone who wants to go out for sports, of course you will meet people going out for sports. One more for party, people for party, traveling, and so forth. And I don't know. Sometimes, as much people in France and in Canada, you can find them in both countries. Maybe also in Latin America. I don't know. But at least as an immigrant in those countries, for me, it felt like sometimes people were saying, "No thanks, I already have the friends I want to have.
Hmm.
It was nice to meeting you, but bye bye." So I don't know.
I mean, I think that is something as an immigrant that for the first few years of your time in a place, you're going to have most of your experiences with other immigrants because you
Mhm.
instantly have that thing that you connect with. You're like you say, like you described, you're all in this situation together, or you're by yourself, but you're other people are there doing the same thing. So it's easier to connect with immigrants who are going through the same thing. And then maybe once you have more time in a country, in a place, you understand some references and some of the pop culture, then it's easier to connect with local people.
Yeah, but also sometimes it's also local people, but sometimes they have something in common.
Hmm.
Like people that would like to learn Spanish.
Hmm.
They are French, but they join the association. People that are from there but married to someone else from Latin America, they also join the association. They also become of the circle. You see, people that I don't know, they're dating someone even if they're not married. They also join the circle. So I don't think it's only because we're immigrants. I think um, it's a different philosophy of life. Sometimes people, when they are in the home country, they don't ask the questions that are needed to open their minds into traveling or what's going on in another country.
Hmm. So, what was it that made you want to leave Peru in the first place? Did you know that you always wanted to leave Peru?
I never wanted to leave Peru.
You never wanted to leave Peru.
No, maybe when I was a kid, when I was like very young, I don't know, elementary school, I heard some people saying how the things were, because sometimes in private school where some members of my some other students were had families abroad. So they were saying, for example, New York's like this, oh, but California's like that, and mostly US,
Hmm.
you know. So, oh, that would be nice to see when I was young. But when you grow up and you have such a big influence from the US, as is the case in Peru, you hear also in the news what's going on over there.
Hmm.
You hear about the big cases of racism, the inegalities, and how expensive it is to go to a hospital, or how can you get framed just because your skin color is different by the
Yeah.
police, and so on and so on. So at some point, I lost interest on that, and also I was falling in love with my country, which is why I became a tour guide at some point.
Hmm.
And at some point, I didn't want to leave at all. I did this big sacrifice for my wife because I love her. Um, but first, she tried also to integrate herself into Peru. She had a lot of trouble trying to learn Spanish. She also had a lot of trouble trying to get a first job because she didn't have any diplomas, any
Hmm.
degrees back then. So actually, the first reason why we left Peru was because it would be easier for her to do her studies in France.
Yeah.
So we were saying, now that we had 2 years together in Peru, let's try 2 years in France. But those 2 years became 9 for some reason.
9 years. A long time.
It was long, yeah. And so, yeah. No, it was not at all a dream. I was pretty much planning to spend my whole life in Peru and stay there. But, well, it doesn't bother me. I always take the opportunities of life the way they come and make the most of it.
Hmm. So something you've also told me before is that you're not really from anywhere specific.
Yeah. I was born in Lima, but yeah, not very proud of it.
Why?
Sorry, people from Lima. It's like here, French people when they say, "Are you from Paris?" No,
Paris,
I don't know. Yeah, no, I'm not from Paris, even if they
Buenos
are.
Aires,
Yeah, the same thing. Also,
Los Porteños.
yeah, because some people from the city sometimes um, don't know their boundaries, and they are sometimes too aggressive into other people wherever they go. They're sometimes too full of themselves because it's the capital city. Um, yeah, maybe the reason number one I left Lima in the first place when I was young. I left home when I was like 18, 19,
Hmm.
and start traveling. That's why when I met my wife, I already had this experience of traveling. Didn't want to leave much out through because I was very interested in what the country had to offer. There's a lot to see, actually.
Hmm.
I didn't finish. So um, I started just moving from one city to another. Not as a tourist, not like to stay for 2 weeks or 1 month. I wanted to stay for some years, integrate to every community where I was moving, becoming part of them to the point that they would not be able to tell I was from someone else, somewhere else, not from me. But yes, at some point I had the accents of every people and knowing where the stuff was.
Hmm.
Where when you want to cook for something, where do I get this stuff? Oh yes, I know the store is around the corner here. These kind of things. Um, and also because the notion of what we call country in Peru, it's it's a mixture of nations. Now this word comes to me now that I'm here in Canada. I understand Canada is a country that has these two nations, mainly the English speaking and the French speaking nation.
Yeah.
In Peru, even if we speak the same language, we share so many different cultures.
Hmm.
Every place has their own gastronomy, has their own past that they identify mostly to. They have the favorite spots and so on. So sometimes, yes, we're a country. Sometimes we're like a group of nations.
Yeah.
That was something so interesting to me that I wanted to explore in deep when I was moving every time and feel part of every community where I was going.
Hmm.
I mainly stayed in the cities because it was a lot easier, but I would have loved so much to also do it in the countryside. where they speak mostly Quechua. It's a very difficult language. I didn't have much of the time to learn about it.
Do you know some Quechua?
I know some words. I
Okay.
tried very hard. Also, Peru has the problem that Quechua has been um, what's the word? It's been Spanish. People who speak Quechua has been
Mm,
socially marginalized.
marginalized.
Marginalized. Okay, thanks. Yes. Yeah, because at some point it was like not well seen. Once again, domination of the capital city over the
Yeah.
countryside or the small provinces. If you were a Quechua speaker, that meant that you were maybe not having such a good education, maybe not such a good level, maybe not so clean, and many other things that people would say in Lima. And that makes that now, when you ask someone, can you please teach me how to speak Quechua? Because I can tell from your accent, Quechua is your first language. They say, no, I don't speak Quechua with their accent. Come on, at least a word. Sometimes you grasp some
Hmm.
words, but unless you actually go to a Quechua school and spend some time there.
It's hard. Do you know, is Peru still the country with the most Quechua speakers?
Oh, I don't know. It sounds coherent, but
Because obviously you have Chile, Argentina, and Bolivia as well. They all have
hmm,
region speaking, Quechua speaking regions.
yeah. But again, every region speaks a different type of Quechua that
Hmm.
they kind of understand to each other, but sometimes don't. It's very complex.
Really?
It changes a lot from very short distances,
Okay.
not as much as like Spanish. Spanish takes bigger distances to change
Hmm.
to one another, but Quechua in shorter distances changes a lot more.
Lots of dialects.
Yes, I heard like
Interesting.
for example in Ecuador already they call it something else. They call it Quichua, I think, and
Hmm.
it doesn't sound much like the one you hear in Bolivia.
Okay.
So yeah, it's crazy. Every time I was meeting someone, I was trying to grasp some of those words and still realizing sometimes they're not the same words.
Yeah.
So don't you say like this? No, we say like that. Okay.
And where was the favorite place that you lived?
My favorite place was Arequipa
Why? It's the white city,
because
right?
the white city. Have you been?
I have been, yeah.
Oh, it's a wonderful city. Um, I felt the people was quite warm. That place. Um, the way they anchored themselves to the traditions was also a living way of anchoring themselves to those traditions. Not like let's say I'm descendant from a culture that lived and died 500 years ago,
Hmm.
1,000 years ago. Now they have um, a culture that reminds of something that is a little more recent, like after the Spaniards, right?
Yeah.
But they still live that way. They call it lonco.
Lonco.
Lonco is like someone from the countryside that has more or less education, but still is kind of someone who enjoys living, enjoys of poetry, enjoys of good food, enjoys of nice uh, sightseeing of the countryside, working hard from the moment the sun rises in the morning.
Hmm.
This is a very I was touched by this kind of culture. Local culture, it's sometimes depicted as something funny because they also like laughing at themselves.
Hmm.
But even if they're not so attached because they see it like a caricature of something that happened in the past, people from Arequipa today are also still hardworking, still helpful, warm, up to make contacts with new people, with new friends.
Hmm.
And something that I think is very important when you're traveling. So it was very easy for me to integrate with them.
100%. And how long did you spend there?
I was living there for maybe 7 years, 10 years.
What?
I don't know.
Such a long time. I was expecting you to say a couple of years.
No, no, no.
You spent a long time
I
there.
was already rooted there when I met my wife. So you see, I
Okay.
was really expecting to to live and die there. I was thinking that would be my last home.
Um, and you were a tour guide in Arequipa.
Yes, I did my studies in Arequipa, which makes me a tour guide of the city of Arequipa. In Peru, we have this regionalization of tour guides,
Hmm.
which means in the region you have done your studies is the region where you should be able to work. Not because it's forbidden, but because we want to help others, also local people in every region to
Yeah.
develop their own um, love for the ground, for the land, right?
Hmm.
But also, since I was first a tour guide before in Ica region, and I had a lot of friends there among the tourist industry, they allowed me to be also a tour guide in this region. So I
Hmm.
was the tour guide of the region of Ica and Arequipa.
Nice.
But at some point, I was also interested on sharing my experience with companies who book reservations for people who just use a website, grab a reservation for the whole country.
Hmm.
And sometimes they do this with one um, tour operator.
Okay.
And I was a tour operator. There's an, we say tour accompagnateur in French. I don't remember in English. Tour operator is the company. This tour accompagnateur is, I don't remember right now. I will teach
Yeah, no
you the
problem.
word in English. So the nice thing about this is that as soon as they land in Lima, I go to pick them up at their
Okay.
hotel, and then I bring them all the way through Ica, uh, Caracas, Ica, Nazca,
Hmm.
Arequipa, Colca, Puno, and then drop them in Cusco to someone else. So 2 weeks trip with them,
Yeah.
and that was such a good thing.
Visiting your favorite places.
Yes, the places where I had so much friends, and also I know their history. I know the
Hmm.
good spots to eat, the good restaurants and stuff. Or at least I used to know. I don't know. Maybe they changed. It's been a while now. But yeah, that was my favorite kind of trip.
Hmm.
Also because they had enough time to connect with my tourists to to understand what they're looking for in this
Yeah.
trip, and of course provide them what they're looking
So, what was it that drew you to tourism?
for. What was it?
What was it that drew you to tourism? Why did you want to become a tour guide?
Actually, it was more by accident. I grew all my childhood thinking I wanted to be an engineer.
Hmm.
Um, at some point, I was just not paying attention to even school lessons of history, geography, or anything that was not about science or math, because I was really interested on becoming an engineer. And when I was in university, my parents divorced, so I had to go and find my own way.
Hmm.
And I found someone who said, "Hey, Dennis, you already speak English, right? So we're looking for tour guides." So I don't know anything about tour guiding. Yeah, it's fine. We just need to speak English. Back then, it was very easy.
Okay.
It was a lot of demand and not many people
Hmm.
working as tour guides, especially during the high season, which is July, August. And that was the way I got in. At some point, I liked it so much that I just wanted to do studies on it,
Yeah.
and I became a certified tour guide.
So, is this when the tourism was really blowing up in Peru?
Um, I think it still is. It's like one of the main industries in Peru.
Hmm. But I mean, like, I guess in the last 20, 30 years, Peru's become like a real destination that people want to
Mm.
go and visit.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. Um, but I still think there's a lot of people going all the time. I find my friends in tourism not struggling at all
Hmm.
to find groups and keep growing. Actually,
Only after the when they had the riots. Yeah.
what was
But like the strike in 2022.
Oh,
in
those like just
December.
come and go. They
I know, but the way it was portrayed in the media really scared a lot of people away. When I was visiting Peru, they told me that tourism has been so low this year because everyone's scared to come.
maybe, I don't know. Those things happen so often. Tourism is a very fragile industry.
Hmm.
Every 4 years, there's a World Cup somewhere in the world that impacts tourism in Peru
Yeah,
because the World Cup is not happening in Peru,
yeah,
so they go somewhere else that year. Pandemics also impacted
yeah.
tourism. Doesn't stop it from keeping on growing. So
Hmm.
there's still more and more people. I sometimes see some of those groups, and there's so much more new people that I don't know. And yeah, so it means still good.
100%.
Mm.
I think it is the whole continent in general. Like people are starting to realize that South America is not this super crazy dangerous continent anymore. You know, you can go there and
Yeah,
you can explore, and you're not really at a big risk of something happen. Of course, things happen, but it's not like it's hard to keep up this big lie that the media has been putting on for such a long time.
I wouldn't say it's lie. It's just a different perspective. Like some people have trouble because sometimes they're not lucky, sometimes they're not informed, many reasons.
Hmm.
Some people just go through and they have a very wonderful experience when they're in Peru
Hmm.
and they share it with others, and that's what makes other people come also the next year. Um, for example, in the 80s, I remember we had this problem with terrorists in Peru. Terrorism was a big thing, and there were mainly two groups, terrorist groups that were like causing a lot of instability for travelers. Um, but at the same time was attractive because the instability was making the currency go very cheap.
Yeah.
So many people were saying this is the best moment to travel to Peru. This is the same situation, different perspective.
Hmm.
Um, yes, every time, ever since, the situation is becoming a lot more stable. In the 90s, already tourist groups got dismantled more or less because there are still some places where you should not go in case they are still there.
Really,
Yeah,
there are some no-go zones.
yeah, but they are like away from the tourist circuit.
Hmm.
Like I've never seen them.
Oh, you've never been there,
No.
and you have no interest in going, or
The thing is, that, you could go to many places in Peru, but there are like spots you have to see, and the spots that would be in a second list, spots that could be in a third list. And once you finish all of that, you still have the dodgy
yeah.
spots away. So why bother?
I mean, yeah, but it would be nice to see everything. You can
Oh,
never
you
really
could
see
never.
everything, but come close to seeing everything at least.
Yeah, yeah,
Are
it
you
could
on your
be.
third list yet?
Um, no, no, second. I would say second. I luckily when I was a tour guide, I did a lot of nice trips, but also I was limited to the same circuit most of the time. So the other spots were something mostly visit when I was on vacation. I was working for myself, so I
Hmm.
decided to take some time off and go there, which was not all the time. At some point, the more I was getting experience and stuff, the more agencies were calling me, so
Hmm.
the less vacations I was having. And I mostly used those vacations to visit my family because I was not living in the same city as them.
Do all your family still live in Lima?
No, my family is like also everywhere.
Okay.
Especially on my father's side. My father, for example, lived on the other side of the country. So it would take me 2 days by bus to get there. Um, I have a cousin that also lives in Lima. Yeah, I have a cousin that lives here in New York. You see, I've never seen her in New York, but when she was
Hmm.
in Lima. Yeah, yeah. I think many people in my family are travelers.
Hmm.
They also enjoy traveling. That's the way it is.
Comes in the blood.
Maybe, yeah.
The Incan blood.
Nomad? I don't know. I don't think it comes from the Incas.
No,
No, I think it's more ancient.
more ancient than the Incas.
Yeah, maybe from the first Australopithecus. I don't know. I don't know. It's just something that is in the family. I don't know where it comes from.
Hmm. It's interesting because in my family, we don't really have many travelers. I think I'm kind of the black sheep of the family.
Well, have you tried bringing them here?
Yeah, well, I met my mom in Argentina. She went and visited me. Um,
Did you like it?
yeah, she loved it. She had an amazing time. It was really nice and we went to the north of Argentina as well. So it was, she got to see Buenos Aires, and then we went to Salta and Jujuy. So she saw something bit more cultural as well. And I hadn't been there, so it was the first time for both of us, and it was a really nice experience.
Okay. Sometimes when people do these kind of trips, they like it so much they want to plan the next trip.
Yeah.
Didn't this happen to? Didn't happen to?
No, I mean, it's hard. It is hard because the flights are obviously very expensive, and the life that they have there. I mean, the UK is obviously a lot better for holiday than here. Over there, you get like 5 or 6 weeks holiday each
Mm.
year. I don't know here, but I think it's like 2 or 3 weeks. It's really
Mm.
not a lot. But it is very complicated with the distance,
Yeah.
And I think for them to tell them, come and visit me here in Montreal, I don't see so much of a point. If I'm just living my normal working life, then what are they gonna come and do?
Well, you could take a break. There are nice things to see here.
No, I'm in these countries to work. I don't
Okay.
come to Canada to travel. I come here to work.
Okay.
So I would like to. I'd like to do a trip with all of them and with my dad at some point, and my sister, and one day her kids as well. That would be really nice, but a little more in the future, I think.
Because there are nice things to see also here. Like you have the biodome. Have you been to the biodome?
In the city?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Well, there's something to visit. And you have also the chalet that they more like out on the countryside.
Hmm.
You have Niagara Falls, not far away from here.
It's
It's
just
small,
so
small, man.
expensive, man. It's everything's so
Yeah,
expensive here in Canada. That's the problem.
yeah, yeah. Sure. Compared to Latin America, at least, yeah.
Hmm.
If you go out with the budget of last trip to Argentina, surely you're not gonna make it too long.
No, no way.
But maybe the biodome would be a good thing to see. They have some museums of what they call it, the First Nations,
Hmm.
where you also see what people used to do here before the arrival of Europeans. So
Hmm.
there are things to see.
We get the museums free the first Sunday of every month.
Yeah, and so that will also reduce the budget.
No, but I think they can. We'll do a trip somewhere else in the world. What about you? Have you traveled with your family before?
With my family when I was young.
Hmm.
Um, when I was a kid, and my parents were together, yeah, they used to do some trips here there. Um, we didn't leave Peru back then. We didn't need. Ah, yeah, once we were once to Ecuador, but I was like very young. I don't remember much of the trip itself.
Hmm.
I just remember it was very hot because it was the summer and it was like a heat of very special uh, hot temperatures.
Okay.
Yeah, were like exceptional. And no, not much with my family. My family is often traveling on their own. Like we appreciate the time we have together to stay in one place.
Yeah.
I also brought my father to France.
Okay. Did he
Uh,
like it?
yeah, he found it too cold. So this is why I'm hesitating to bring it here.
Are you talking about the temperature or the people?
No, temperature. Oh, the people was very difficult for because he doesn't speak French.
Does he speak English?
He knows some words.
Okay.
I don't know if he's able to keep a conversation, but he would be able to understand some.
Hmm.
And in France, we didn't find much people speaking English anyway. So
Or not that they wanted to, at least.
no, it's like they don't have a very elaborated education on languages. Like language comes last. They're all things
Hmm.
more priority. You might have a French teacher saying, "Ryan is in the kitchen." The teacher.
I think, and this hypothesis I have, is that the French have a very similar attitude as us Brits, because we expect that the whole world speaks English. Um, so languages are always put last for us as well. And I think there's some level of pride as well about the language, and because French used to be a very big language, it used to be the
Lingua franca.
lingua franca of the world.
Some people think they still should be the lingua franca. That's the problem.
Yeah, yeah.
And then apparently, I heard the same thing about Spain. Some people in Spain also think, why should we learn other languages? People already speak Spanish everywhere. So, yeah, it's maybe a thing of Europe. I don't know.
I mean, they're the ones who are probably the most right out of everyone, you know.
Maybe, I don't know. In Peru, it's a different philosophy, completely different. You kind of hear all the time that we are a third world country.
Hmm.
The thing of country in way of development is still a new notion. Many people don't assimilate. We still hear third world country.
Hmm.
So that kind of gets us to understand that many things coming from abroad are good. Most things for the people and everything for other people. And they're like very pessimist. They say everything
Hmm.
from abroad is good. So that's a motivation for them to learn languages.
Hmm. So, where would you like to visit in the world?
Where would I like to visit? I had a bucket list. I mean, I had because I'm not free to choose everything by myself now. We're now two in the boat. So my bucket list was mainly all the spots in the world where a civilization has spring on itself,
Hmm.
like the centers of different civilizations. Of course, Egyptians, Mesopotamians, Greek, Rome, um, Mayas, Aztecs. I already know Incans. So and also other civilization before the Incas. Was my were my favorite trips to discover how they lived so many thousand years ago. So
Hmm.
I think is something I find fascinating. I like a lot archaeology, and I would like to learn how people found a way into the wilderness where there was nothing, where there were no
Hmm.
guidelines, nowhere to go or to tell you, no one to tell you what you should do and how you should do it without
Hmm.
even giving you a reason. How is they saw the world that they decided let's do things this way from now on. So yeah, those are the spots I would like to visit.
Hmm. Have you always been interested in history?
Always.
Mm.
Well, not when I was in school, but ever since I became a tour guide. I found it. I think that's the thing I found the most fascinating.
Hmm.
The history, the places I had to share with people, and especially because I started being a tour guide in Caracas, Pisco,
Hmm.
which has a very ancient story before the Incas. And the more I was knowing, of course, the more it was interesting to share with tour groups I had every day.
Can you share the story? Because I have visited Baracas and I don't think that I really got told a story. So.
Well, something very funny about the Caracas thing is that as I was telling you, when I was in school, I was not very interested in history. But for some reason, I got this information stuck in my head
Mm-hmm.
of the teacher explaining us that actually in ancient Peru we had mummies that were found on the ground in the
Mm-hmm.
position. Oh, mummies! Actually, I thought that was a thing from like Egypt
Mm-hmm.
as a kid. Um, where did this happen? Caracas, in district of Pisco, Region Ica, not far south from Lima. Okay, and when? Somewhere between 700 before Christ to 200 after Christ. And in the book, you had these drawings explaining how the mummies were sitting in a basket and covered in textiles that were very rich.
Yeah.
So rich that the book could not explain it with words. That's why they were having so much images.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, okay, that was interesting. But anyway, I just want to become an engineer someday, so this is not relevant for me. That's what I was thinking. Years later, when I come back and when I find this job as tour guide in Paracas, and they are started to telling me, and I was like, yes, but they had mummies in fetal positions. Yes, how do you know? I remember something from school for some reason. And yes, all this information started to come back to me and become relevant. Something that I thought was completely useless was something that became very, very important at the core of my new job.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I was trying to find information about it to widen more my speech on the tours, um, the more I found it interesting. So the thing about the history of the Paracas is, yes, the more interesting thing is that they made mummies that preserved their bodies for the afterlife,
Mm-hmm.
and they made tunnels in the middle of the desert that were shaped like a cup, upside down, so like a bottle, say. So this chamber would sometimes have a family of them, sometimes a group, like a society. And in later versions of those burials, they did actually boxes that they called necropolis in
Mm-hmm.
city of the because they were more like looking like cities. They
Yeah.
were like streets and stuff. And the textiles they made were so rich that still we wonder how, what was in their heads. Were they thinking that maybe the richer textiles would give them more privileges in the afterlife, or how
Mm-hmm.
did it work? Maybe because they already had the privileges in this life that they made such rich textiles. They spend like the whole day, whole night. How long did they live for to make such details?
Oh, sorry, when you're talking about rich textiles, are you talking about like gold encrusted or like silken? Like what kind of rich textiles?
Um, no, it was not uh, in that way. Rich in the way that it has a lot of detail,
Okay,
a lot of color, and the color still preserves until today.
really?
Yes, and it's amazing. Why is the color still today there? And after a lot of research, what the archaeologists found is that actually, before the arrival of the Spaniards, um, the Paracas used to cultivate different colors of cotton.
Mm-hmm.
So you had like green cotton, blue cotton, purple cotton, red
Okay.
cotton, yellow cotton. And those native colors of the cotton, like the color was on the DNA.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they could sew or make these textiles that are still so colorful today.
How did they manage to do this?
Well, that's what we were still wondering. They're still wondering. Sometimes they say that would be impossible. They would need to be sewing like 8 hours a day for 10, 15 years nonstop. No
Yeah,
weekends, no vacation like today.
this way it's like the pyramids as well.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Sometimes also some textiles are rich not because of the colors but also because of the details.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have fishing nets. Fishing nets supposed to just to be a grid.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to stop at the grid. They wanted to make small designs of fish on every square.
Okay.
So you have like square like I don't know this big,
Yeah.
but there are like whole fishing scene
Really.
inside of every one of the squares. It's crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah. Um, at the side there's still some well not at the side but next to it there's still some families trying to preserve those colored cotton species that are native. Some of them are believed to be lost because of the commerce with the Spaniards. The Spaniards found the cotton here was very fine, very good quality, so they wanted to export it, to take it to Spain. The main production was on white color because it was easy to wear. You just
Hmm.
do something white and then you color it whatever you want. So that's why this native color kind of disappeared. But there are still some breeds that exist today.
Wow. It's really interesting. So, going back to the mummies and the necropolis, this all started in Paracas.
Yes, the Paracas, everybody had those textiles enveloping every mummy in
Hmm.
many layers. So many textiles
Hmm.
were found. Um, in Peru also we have this problem with, we call them huaqueros, so like raiders. They sometimes want to steal whatever is inside the many layers. They would believe that maybe inside there are like gold or silver idols
Yeah.
next to the body on the last layer. So sometimes they break and abandon the textiles on the surface.
Mm.
Well, that was in the past. They broke and left abandoned. Trying to find gold and silver they could melt and then sell on the black market. Um, but now, even today, there are still some of those vaqueros trying to find even the textiles because now they understand it can be sold for big amounts of money.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah, so it's a very big loss because it's like having a puzzle and you find that someone stole one of the pieces. It's very difficult. And yes, so those are mainly the things that make Paracas so big. Also, something that amazes archaeologists is that the Paracas, for some reason, divided in groups like most societies. But high class people used to elongate the schools.
Mm.
So much so, it's incredible the shape they gave. There are people with the conspiracy that those were aliens. It's impossible that head looks human. Come on. How human you want it to be? It has two eyes, it has a nose, it has teeth. It lacks teeth.
This was the original cosmetic surgery then.
Yes, we could say, yeah.
And how did they use to elongate their skulls?
When a baby is born, their heads are very soft.
Okay.
So they had this kind of cradle that had a shape for the head of the baby.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's funny. It seemed to be maybe a little painful for the baby at first. When they just grow up, it's already having that shape. It's not the only culture in the world who deform the skulls.
Mhm.
There are other cultures. I think is Ethiopia, for example. Um, I don't know. There are like 4 or 5 other cultures who
Mhm.
did cranial deformation. Sometimes Paracas though tried too hard, and that gave them uh, headaches to people with these shapes. So they also invented cranial surgery.
What?
Cranial surgery.
Cranial surgery. Okay.
They opened, well, that's just opening on the school.
Yeah.
Apparently, they believe this shaping of the head would accumulate too much pressure on some spots.
Okay.
So they took a knife, cut through the bone, took out the piece of bone, used to be a square, and sometimes fill it with gold, sometimes silver,
Really?
sometimes pumpkin, depending of how.
Pumpkin?
Yeah, there were like 3
Wouldn't that like
levels.
get rotten?
No, like dried up pumpkin, like a kind of
Okay.
wood.
Okay.
That it has to be a piece that matches exactly the hole, so it
Hmm.
was like millimetrical. and we know these people survived to the operation because you can tell when the bone is regenerating
Yeah.
on top of that external layer. That's something that also we don't know much about how they manage to do it in a way there's no infections.
Yeah.
Uh, Even other cultures after the Paracas try to reproduce these cranial trepanations, they're called trepanations, with less success. Of all of the skulls that were found, we know that some of them died
Hmm.
because the, the, the skull didn't try to close itself.
Okay.
So the Paracas are still considered the ones that had the most success on that operation. Like the
Wow.
first to try it and still the best.
Interesting. What, do you have any theories on how these civilizations were able to achieve things that maybe we wouldn't be able to achieve now?
Well,
I mean, this specifically, probably we could do something like this now, but it's still.
for once they were not in their mobiles all the time, so by looking around you can learn so much.
We forgot what productivity is.
Yeah, but wouldn't you feel you would learn so much if you were like in a civilization in the middle of nowhere without electricity, without.
Yeah, but even the example you gave about the textiles, like how long it would have taken them to do all of these things, even when so many people, etc.
Mm,
Like, how are they able to do that now that we couldn't do it with modern technology?
what do you mean we cannot do textiles?
Well, the way that you described it, you know,
Oh,
like that it was, they were so efficient in the ways that they were doing it.
efficiency, I think, is just a matter of trying a lot, learning from past experience. Like, there is this group of people in Indonesia, I believe.
Hmm.
They're able to swim for like 15 minutes without going out to the surface.
15
Yeah,
minutes.
it's crazy.
Really?
It's because they are in an island and their main economy is on fishing. So they develop these breathing techniques
Mm.
and also genetics adapted to swimming for a very long time.
That's wild. 15 minutes.
Yeah. I don't know if it's actually 15 minutes or like 7, but still crazy
It's
number
still a
for.
lot, yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't think I could stand for 2 minutes. So.
No, I think one would be pushing it for
Yeah.
me. 30 seconds.
You smoke?
I quit. I
Oh,
quit.
right. I mean, smoking is maybe more difficult.
Yeah.
But still, it's quite a long time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I think the body, the natural limits are a lot higher than we think that they really are. And I guess if these people have been dedicating their whole lives to these specific things, yeah, it's
Of course.
possible. But if I ask you the example of the pyramids, like how they say that even with modern technology now it would be difficult to build them, no?
Yeah.
And how on earth did they manage to do it two,
Um.
3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago?
Actually, pyramids is a subject that I like reading so much about. Um. It's not as incredible as they. Of course, it's incredible to be on front of them, and they are wonderful. But imagine a time where someone would force you to do hard work, like pulling stones, not caring about your rights at all. You have no rights. You have no right to sleep. You have no right to eat at the time you were supposed to eat. You have just the right to work 16 hours a day pulling one
Yeah.
freaking stone with the crowd of people. Of course, you're not alone. So you're having 50, 60 people pulling one of those stones one at a time. It's more than possible. Why don't they ask the same question for the Parthenon? The Parthenon is more difficult.
But it's a lot smaller.
Yeah, but the principle of carrying one stone on top of the others requires a crane.
Yeah.
It existed also in Greece, and no one wonders how they bring some extraterrestrials with a lifting anti-gravity ray to bring those stones on top of each other.
Actually, did you did explain it to me recently? Like the crane was in the middle of the pyramid, right?
Yeah, there's a passage inside apparently that was detected by a French guy. I don't remember what's his career, but he was thinking the easiest way to do it would be to have a passage inside, like a spiral going into the
Hmm.
pyramid on the inside. So he was lucky because he met a group of people who were trying to explore the pyramid in a different way, radiography, and the radiography found the passage inside.
Hmm.
So they took a picture. You can find it online
Yeah.
on internet, and you can see the spiral of the photo from the top.
Interesting.
So as there are some corners missing on the stones, um, on those corners, like it has triangular faces that meet on corners.
Hmm.
In those corners is like the easiest spot to place the crane to lift one stone from the bottom to the
Okay.
passage, and then push the rest of the distance.
Hmm. But then there was a big gap in time where we didn't use cranes for a long time, right?
We never know. The fire was invented different times. Cats were domesticated twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who did it first? And who did it
Uh,
second?
like the Egyptians already had cats, right?
Yeah.
Domesticated cats. Those are not the cats we domesticate today.
Okay.
I think it was somewhere in Cyprus. I don't remember right now. But the cats we have today, domestic cats, are like from a second domestication of the cats. Dogs were also domesticated many times, more than two. In Peru, we had domestic dogs before the arrival of the Spanish.
Really?
So many things are invented different times in time. Then something else seems to replace it, and then the old technology takes over again. History is not linear.
Yeah.
The Greeks already knew machine of steam, right?
Really? Steam, like steam engines?
Yeah. Well,
Not quite
the
engines, but
principle, the principle of the engine.
yeah.
I don't think they use it, and the reason was because slaves were cheaper.
Mm. Money, money, money.
Well, if it's too expensive, an idea will not succeed, of course.
Yeah, that's true. Another one is El Dia de los Muertos,
Hmm.
because that is very prominent in, I mean, All Hallows Day, and it came in Europe, and then you guys celebrate something for,
We guys in Peru
what do
we
you
don't
call it?
have it. We inherited the Spanish version. Yeah, de Todos los Santos,
Hmm.
All Hallows Day comes from the church. But in Mexico they did have Dia de Muertos before the arrival of the Spaniards.
In Bolivia, they also had it before, I think, as well.
Really? Okay.
I think so. I might be wrong on that one, but
Um, uh, we also have a very close culture to that one of Mexico, to the point that sometimes people, without knowing the origin of their traditions, they think they're from them, but actually
hmm.
they arrived not so long ago.
Really?
Yeah, so sometimes in Puno, not far from Lake
Yeah.
Titicaca, people make this kind of bread that is shaped like a baby, which is kind of a
Okay.
local tradition, right? Not from people from Puno or from Peru, but before the arrival of the Spaniards, which explains why also in the Bolivian side some look as alike. But making an altar with the photos and stuff looks more like the Mexican Dia de los Muertos, you
Really?
see. And they mix everything and they say, yes, we've been doing this for all time. Half of it you were doing for the whole time. It's syncretism. It's the way civilizations exist. We have a core civilization, and then it gets influenced by whatever happens around.
Hmm. But what was the origin of the? I mean, did the Incans and the Mayans follow a similar, or did they come from the same place before? It was like Polynesia. There's the
Uh,
theory.
yes, there are the most accepted theory is the population of the American continent through the band of Bering, the Bridge of Bering. So through uh, Asia, Russia, Alaska, then North America, South America. But there is this other theory saying that also It could have been that through the Polynesia, some people arrived through the ocean, Pacific Ocean into South America, and they moved to North America.
Hmm.
Those were like discussing to each other, like which would be valid, which are still today, because both of them actually are valid. The question is just who was the first. That is very difficult to know. We have no traces of those times.
Yeah,
But
because we're talking about like 20,000 years ago or something.
yes,
Mm.
and we know that there's people from the Polynesia sharing a common ancestor with people from South America.
Yeah.
Whether they moved to North America too, we don't know. But we know that people that arrived through North America and then moved to South America found something that was older. So did this guy move first to North America or did this guy move first to South America?
What is our the furthest back history that we trace? Is it about 12,000 years?
But to what, sorry?
What's the furthest back history that we can trace? Is it 12,000 years?
Uh, Now you're touching an exam. No, I don't remember right now the numbers. I just know there are people that is like older to what it should correspond to people immigrating from the Bering Bridge and then moving from North America
Hmm.
to South America. The numbers don't match, so there has to be other group of human people coming through Polynesia.
Hmm.
And also they are, it seems like cultural resemblances. The way they build hats also in South America look a lot like the ones that are found in ancient Polynesia.
Hats.
Yes, like brown with uh, thatch roofs.
Huts.
That's
That's okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
yeah, and also
What, what,
genetic. I think
what is the furthest dated back history there is in South America?
the oldest,
Yeah.
the oldest humans. I don't remember right now, but civilization in in South America you have Caral. It's
Caralho.
like from the same time of the Egyptians. Wrong.
So, like 4,000 years back,
Yeah,
2000 BC, something.
4, 5 yes,
Wow, okay. And whereabouts is this, sorry?
next to Lima.
Next to Lima.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, very close to Lima.
Damn, I wish I knew.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is that all the time there are these discoveries, and people always want to go to Machu Picchu, but it's about advertising. It's
Yeah.
about popularity. People don't know much about it. I've been there last time. It was very difficult to get there. Actually, we needed a car to drive through paths that were not very clear, so difficult to find.
But there's not really like tours. You can't really do tours from Lima.
Maybe there are because we saw all the people there too, and there
Okay.
were like panels and stuff that explain history and kind of a local museum.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's not very popular. That's all.
Interesting. And next time I go to Peru, I'm going to ask you for a long list of recommendations. I would definitely like to spend more time in Peru and Bolivia for those reasons. Like I think there's so much history, a
Mm.
really rich part of the continent.
Yes, yeah. They are like the Incas that were the most known, but when you study at least the history, the prehistory of Peru, we say there were like three horizons:
Hmm.
um, the early horizon, the middle horizon, and the late horizon. Late horizon were the Incas,
Hmm.
and the early horizon you had the Paracas and Chavin. And there was like that was a classification of prehistory by Julio César Tello, who was an archaeologist in Peru. And I don't know if this is still valid now because of Caral and other thing. I don't know how this impacts today's vision of archaeology. I would need to update myself to know.
Mm. But it's super interesting.
Yeah, only three cultures. Like by horizon, it means they expanded so
Hmm.
much their culture, so much so that it impacted a long part of the territory. But every time these pseudo empires, we could say, break, of course, it brings regionalizations, small
Hmm.
civilizations that develop mainly on the region with their ways of seeing. You
Yeah.
know, like the Roman, they had the
Mm-hmm.
Latin Empire, and then they divided in Spanish, Portuguese,
Mm-hmm.
French, and so on. Same thing.
Mm. Mm.
It's quite
How
wide.
how do you think that they're gonna look at us in like
Oof.
200 years time? What is this period of time gonna look like?
I don't know. I could just wish it for good. I'm not sure how we're gonna be seen. Maybe I hope the group of people that made a breaking point of what was bringing inertia,
Mm-hmm.
in our way of capitalist way of exploiting resources, because it was not so sustainable anymore. I don't know. At some point, we're burning too much fuel. We're overheating the planet. We're polluting the oceans, and I don't know how much more can we manage to survive like that.
So you don't know if there's gonna be anyone around to look back at our history. Is that
No,
what
I
you're
think I
suggesting?
think we will adapt. I think at some point, situation will become so unsustainable that a lot of people could die.
A lot of
But
people are going to die, but a lot of people are already dying.
yeah, and it's going to be always like that. There's always going to be at least a group of people surviving.
Mm-hmm.
Not always the rich as we tend to think. Oh, the rich are well protected. No, sometimes also they're vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And I come from Peru, a country where we always uh, break our presidents if they don't behave well. So, and that's why, for example, Colombia sees with good eyes. Oh, you're so brave, guys. Now we're just doing what we can.
Yeah,
Well,
you guys are like the French.
yeah, maybe. The thing is, yeah, sometimes they're vulnerable too. Uh, you have Trump right now. Not Trump. Uh, the other guy.
Elon Musk.
Now here in Canada,
Ah, Trudeau.
Trudeau. At some point, he felt that he was not having enough support, so he decided to quit.
Yeah.
So being on top, being on bottom, you're still vulnerable. Situations change. Devil's turn.
No, but I mean, I think Trudeau is. I don't want to get too political, but I don't think he's quite, one of the elite elites. I don't think he's on that level, but
Not today.
not today.
That he was at some point. He was the prime minister of the country that was
Well, he still is the
powerful.
prime minister, no?
Well, yes, yes. He's not going to be for too long. Yeah, maybe politics is not the best way to go.
Oh, I've been so charged up recently. We've had a crazy month.
Yeah.
Fascism is on the rise.
Oof. Hasn't it been already?
It has been, but not so openly that you can do a Nazi salute.
I can switch my example instead of talking about Trudeau. I can still talk about the. Okay, I cannot tell in your YouTube
You
channel.
can say anything, I
The guy
think.
with the mustache.
Yeah, I think you can say.
Well, him or Mussolini
Hmm.
that also had, well, an end, not the same ending, but very more tragic ending.
But a
They
lot of
rose on
people got
top.
a lot of people got hurt in the process. That's the problem. That's the problem with these people, that they will do what they want and they will do anything to get it.
Yeah. So yeah, even if they're on top, or maybe we're a bit more used to see people fall when they're on the bottom already
Hmm.
because they're close to us. Uh, at some point, but you remember the COVID, the pandemic as well.
Hmm.
During the pandemics, there were people like from all the different levels that were getting sick.
Yeah.
Some of them close to die. So yeah, so
Nature doesn't care who you are.
whenever the crisis arrive, I think sometimes just reduces our numbers. We will still survive as a whole.
Hmm.
There will be people in 2,000, 3,000 years studying.
You
what
think?
was our civilization. I think
Here on this planet.
yes. If we're not here on this planet, we will be in another planet. That we will still have people studying our history.
Mm.
And I don't know what they will think about us. I hope they're not too hard on us because, of course, their values will not be the same as theirs.
Mm-hmm.
The same way we look at people in the past, and sometimes we're unable to put ourselves in their shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Like this guy that had so many slaves and treat them well. Yeah, but still, you had slaves, guy.
Yeah. Yeah, this idea of like a relativity. I mean, yeah, you can say, yeah, it was a bit better, but still, we were doing some bad shit.
Yeah. That's why I think we should see history to learn from it, not to
Mm-hmm.
judge it. What can we learn for us today not to do? Because we did
Mm-hmm.
and we know it was not good. What can we change? How can we improve our world today with what we've lived before?
Mm-hmm.
With the way we saw the world before?
Mm-hmm.
Because seeing the world today might not look like the same way they saw the world in their day, but sometimes it does.
Yeah.
Nature doesn't change as much. The interactions with people sometimes change, but sometimes we're still human, you see.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, it's very true. Deep words. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think maybe you are right. There are going to be people who survive, even if the world gets blown to pieces, or we have a zombie apocalypse, or there's a, I think there are always going to be some people surviving. Probably. I guess I kind of have more of like a dystopian Wall-E view of what I think the future is going to be like, but maybe it'll be a Futurama. Maybe everyone's going to be flying around in their spaceships.
I was expecting that when I was young in the 2000s. I was so disappointed 2001 it didn't arrive. Where are the flying cars?
Well, Futurama is based in 3000, so we just have another 1,000 years to go. I think that stuff is coming in the next 50 years, though.
Yeah, maybe. Uh,
Do you reckon? You don't reckon?
I don't know. Do you know Cessnas were invented as a flying car?
Teslas were invented.
Cessnas.
Se-
Cessna is a kind of um, four seats plane.
Okay.
Six, four, I think four.
Okay.
The thing is that a car doesn't have the shape to fly.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be more elongated. So it was a car that got long, and then for the weight it was supposed to carry wings.
Mm-hmm.
It's a flying car. The only
Yeah.
thing is that we don't call it a car because it flies. So are we ever
It's
gonna
a
have
plane.
flying cars? I think no.
I think we'll get to the point. Everyone loves
Or
to
if it flies, we used to call it a car.
think about the marketing on that. Oh, we had the flying car. Some people are going to make too much money for them not to do that marketing.
Okay.
Buy your flying car now.
I think they did it with Cessnas.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm gonna have a look after because I don't know what this car is.
Well, it's a small plane.
Okay.
It's a plane with four seats.
I've seen some videos recently with drones that are now big enough to people can fly with them.
And they're called drones, not cars.
Well, they are drones. They are drones.
Are you disappointed they're not called cars?
No, because they're not cars.
Okay. What if they can also roll on the road?
It depends how they look.
Yeah,
I'll call it what it looks like. If it looks like a car and it can fly, then it's a flying car in my book.
Yes, you have a flying car. It's true that drones are more free to shape because they don't need to be aerodynamic. They don't. Yeah.
But it would be kind of scary as well.
Why?
I don't know. Have you seen the videos of people like standing on them? It looks kind of wild, like your balance and stuff.
When you're standing on it, yes. But when you have a cabin to sit and drive.
In the future, yeah, when they have that.
They already have.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, you haven't?
No, okay. No, I've only seen the ones where they stand on them.
No, it's fun. I don't think they're still mass produced, but they were like still building prototypes, and it seems like they need very big how do you call them,
Propellers.
propellers.
Mm. Well, let's see in the
Horse
next
distances.
5, 10 years, they're going to be very capable, I imagine.
Yeah, it will be so much easier to travel with those.
Yes, you're going to have to worry about sky traffic.
Uh, the thing is, to make it easier, there's no much human intervention in the driving. See,
Hmm.
um,
You just put in your location, it sends you off.
right?
And yeah.
Because they're way more efficient than we are.
Mm. Technology knows what it's doing.
Yeah, still needs some development at the moment, but it's going on a good way. They already make less accidents than human. I think.
Hmm.
In planes, they do anyway. In planes, you have autopilot, and a lot easier.
Hmm.
That's why you have less accidents in planes now.
I think we're going to come to the end here. I've really enjoyed this discussion. I think I've learned a few things about history, so thank you very much.
Yeah, in the end, we ended up talking about something else.
No, that's what I love about this project, because everyone has their story to tell, and that's a part of it. But we also have things that we are interested in and
Mhm,
interesting to talk about in life and in the world. So
mhm.
it's good. I don't really have people who want to talk about these things. So thank you for coming.
That's my pleasure.
So now we're going to finish on the last three things for today. The last three questions.
Homework.
So, so the question from the last guest was, what was the thing, the moment in your life that made you feel the most alive?
The thing that makes me feel the most alive, I think traveling in general is what makes me feel alive.
Hmm.
The discovery of new ways of seeing the world, people, the people I meet, the the buildings they made around them, the way they see the world, um, is something that fills me to a point that I feel alive. Yeah,
Hmm.
and I feel so lucky to be able to be there.
Do you remember one specific moment that made you feel the most alive?
Um, I think it was maybe when I started being a tour guide and doing these trips all the time, and and sharing this pleasure with other people,
Hmm.
because in the end that's what we do. We're not just tape recorder. We're people sharing experiences.
Yeah.
um, I don't like to stand in front of them like a teacher telling them this lesson of story and stuff. It has to be a dialogue forth and back,
Yeah.
so I also learn from them what they like, or how is it there in their country, or how they like it. I don't know. There are many things we can talk about when these trips. And maybe someone in your channel has been with me to Peru. I don't know.
Oof, that would be interesting. I get a comment one day.
Yes, if you have been with me to Peru, leave a comment in the box comment section. Yeah, sometimes this was very fulfilling for me. Because
Hmm.
I wouldn't say it was the most fulfilling. I would have trouble finding a most fulfilling. I've been there in many times. I'm the kind of person who doesn't block myself to do what he wants to do.
Hmm. Nice. What question would you like to ask the next guest?
Um, so I've been trying to find a question, and I couldn't decide. I have two questions. I will let you decide.
Okay.
I would say something that is like very light
Hmm.
as a question would be, what three things would you bring to your next unplanned trip?
Hmm.
Like if you are planning to go somewhere on vacation for the end of the year or next year, that trip doesn't count. Like a
Hmm.
trip you haven't planned yet, and it could arise at a surprise moment.
Okay.
What three things would you bring to this surprise trip?
Yeah.
And another question that would be maybe deeper is what are you trying to find when you travel?
Mm,
Not in one specific destination, but in general.
okay.
Why you travel? You're trying to find something like in yourself or in humanity, in the world, in geography, gastronomy. I don't know.
Mm. Well, I think I should answer one of those questions, and then I should ask the next guest the other. But I
Okay.
don't know which one to do.
Okay. According to your next, if your next guess is something, the conversation goes very deep. Maybe you could use the deep question and you can answer the other,
Yeah.
or the other way around.
But I wanted to give you an answer now, is what I mean.
Okay. Then just flip a coin. I don't know.
Let's find a coin. Where's this one from? That's too big. All right, you can call it this. Well, we have the heads and we have the tails.
Do you have a question, an answer for both questions actually?
Um, I have one for. I have a definite answer for one of them.
But you can answer maybe the one you have the question for. The answer for.
But maybe it's more interesting if I don't have the answer ready.
Okay.
All right. Which is which?
Let's say heads for the first question.
Okay. Tails. Okay.
Ooh,
So the second
you
question,
get a deep question for
I
you.
get the deep question. And the answer that I would give to that is I'm looking for somewhere that I can call home one day.
Oh.
I think I am traveling the world to find a place that I really feel happy,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to spend at least a good portion of my life, you know. And maybe that's not one specific home, but that might be a part of my life I want to spend there, and another part of my life I want to spend somewhere else. Of course, I travel because I enjoy it, and I love meeting people, and I love seeing new places and stuff. But yeah, definitely something that I always have in mind.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a strong candidate on your list?
Buenos Aires, I do love.
Uh-huh.
I love Argentina. Argentina is my favorite country that I visited. Um,
Okay.
but I don't know if it could be my forever home. But I would like to spend some time. I would like to spend some years there
Okay.
for sure.
How long have you been there, you said?
In total, I've spent like maybe a bit more than 1 month.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I've been there
yeah.
4 times, but just
That's very
sometimes a
short,
couple
yeah.
of days. But yeah, I would like to spend a few years there.
You need at least 5 years, I would say, to grab the feeling of being a local. You need to be there, work there, have a favorite spot, favorite restaurant, acquaintances, someone who would say, "Oh, you're actually from abroad? I didn't know." That could happen in Buenos Aires. I mean,
Yeah, maybe.
you already have a little bit of an accent when you speak Spanish, so I think you wouldn't struggle long before arriving there.
We'll see. I don't know when it's gonna be. I don't know when I'm gonna be ready to settle down for a few years, but
Okay.
we'll see. And finally, what
All right.
message would you like to share in your own language?
A message that I keep saying or used to say a lot to my friends back in the day. At some point, I stopped saying it because I understand everyone is the master of their own destiny. Uh, um, at first, when I started traveling, I used to see traveling as the solution for all the problems.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a problem, why are not you traveling? So my message is, tenemos raíces, pero no somos árboles. Muévete. Si no
Mm-hmm.
estás bien donde estás, muévete. El ave no se posa en una rama porque confía en la rama, pero porque confía en sus alas.
Mm, beautiful. Can you translate that to anyone who doesn't speak Spanish?
It means we have fruits, but we're not trees. We're free to move, to travel, to discover other places. A bird doesn't stand on a branch because it trusts the branch, but because it trusts its wings.
Hmm. Yeah, I very much agree with that statement. But I think it's also important what you said about like some people are happy where they are.
Yeah, I understand now that some people also are sometimes happy being sad, and that's something I didn't understand in my head for a very long time. Sometimes I wonder
Comfortably
why.
numb.
Eh?
Comfortably numb.
Not only numb, sometimes they suffer and they don't want to move. You see, but yeah, I decided at some point just to share my advices to people who would be open to listen to them.
Hmm.
And sometimes I arrive at the at the good moment. Sometimes at the bad moment.
Hmm.
That also counts. So I don't close myself to different perspectives. Sometimes I could also be wrong myself, of
Yeah.
course.
Mm. And do you have a message in Quechua that you might be able to share?
I'm not able to make a message. I'm not just some words.
Okay.
No, I don't have any message. I wish I had that.
I have to look for I guess you can speak Quechua.
Yeah, it's more difficult now. I'm so far from home. Uh, I haven't seen if I can find a school of Quechua here in Montreal.
Are you still interested in pursuing this?
Yes, maybe not a goal that is like in the top of my list, but someday, yeah,
Hmm.
definitely.
Nice. Nice. Well, thank you so much for today. This has been a really interesting episode.
Thank you so much. Ben. It's been a very nice, interesting interview.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening for the to the first episode of the year. This has been Backpacks and Stories.